Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel, That Model Railway Guy, and welcome to a very special video where today it's time for the return of the Inglenook Shunting Puzzle. First off, this video is sponsored by D-Rails, a wonderful model shop, one of my absolute favourites, and I'll be telling you why that is a little bit later on, but a big thank you to them for making this video possible. So, as some of you may remember, I've done some videos on the Inglenook Shunting Puzzle in the past, and they always seem to go down fairly well, so I thought I'd revisit it. Now, previously I've done this on the modular layout using two of the sidings and the main line, but recently I finished building this TT120 layout, which I designed with an Inglenook Shunting Puzzle built into it. So, I figured I should put it to the test and see if it actually works. Now, for those of you who are new to the Inglenook Shunting Puzzle, the aim of the game is to assemble a train of 5 wagons out of 8 in total to form up a specific goods train all in the right order. Now, I've only got 7 wagons to play with today, so I'll be playing on easy mode slightly, but you'll still get the idea of how the game works. In order to shunt these wagons into the right formation, we have access to 3 sidings, which you can see here. The middle siding with the goods shed is allowed to have 5 wagons left in it, and the 2 outer sidings can have 3 wagons left in them. And this roughly corresponds to the lengths I built the sidings to. Additionally, to move from one siding to the other, we have the headshunt, and in this area you're allowed to have your loco and no more than 3 additional wagons at any time. So you can't just pull everything out of the sidings to get to something right at the back. You've got to be a little bit more strategic with it. So those are the rules. It might sound a little bit complicated initially, but once we get going I think you'll understand how it works, and I'll explain what I'm doing along the way as well. So let's jump in and get shunting. Of course, before we start assembling our train, we need to have an order to put the wagons in. Now, because I have a brake van, I'm going to make sure that this is at the back of the train where it belongs. For the rest of the wagons, I then assigned each of them a number, ran that through a random number generator, and then picked the first 4 to give me the 5 wagons in total with the brake van. And this is the result. So we have the brake van at the back, like I've already said, then the North's Navigation open wagon there just in front of it, then we have the 2 box vans, the brown one first, followed by the grey one, and then right at the front of the train we have the mineral wagon. And I'm reading this from the back towards the front, which is generally how I like to assemble a train when I'm running the Inglenook Shunting Puzzle. And of course the loco that is going to be taking charge of shunting duties today is the lovely Hornby Class 08. This model has actually been fitted with a stay alive as well, so it's a really nice runner and has great slow speed anyway, so should be perfect for shunting today, and with that stay alive it won't have any issue with stalling on the points at all. So you can see here I've just gone into the front siding where we've got these 2 open wagons. The North's Navigation, which is the red wagon there, is the one I'm going to need to go just in front of the brake van. I've just dragged the wagons forward here over the uncoupling ramp. If you don't know, this layout has uncoupling ramps built into it. So there you can see I've uncoupled from the grey wagon there, and now we can take this single wagon off towards one of the other sidings. Having got hold of this wagon, I can now bring it out to the head shunt so that I can move into one of the other sidings. My plan here is to put this in front of the brake van, but the brake van is actually hidden behind some other wagons, as you'll see in just a moment when we cut to the next shot. So the brake van is actually all the way on this rear back siding. You can't see it at the moment because it's hidden behind the goods shed, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to couple up to the wagons in front of it with the 08 and the existing wagon that I already have attached to it. And I'm going to pull everything out until I get to the uncoupler. So you can see behind this we have the little mineral wagon and then also the brown box van as well. The brake van is then behind this, and what I'm going to do is just stop that over the uncoupler. You can see the uncoupler triggers there, and then we can just take all of this out of the sidings. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to chuck this mineral wagon and the brown box van in that front siding where I got the red open wagon from just a moment ago. That will allow me to just put them out of the way until I need them a little bit later on. Again, you can see here we're using the head shunt to move from siding to siding, and this is the absolute limit of what I can have in the head shunt. 3 wagons and the loco. Of course, the actual head shunt on this layout is a little bit longer. I'm sort of playing by honor rules here today, but you know, if you were to build a Inglenook Shunting Puzzle layout specifically for playing this puzzle, then you could make the head shunt actually the exact length of a loco and your 3 wagons. So here we go, just pushing that extra wagon further into the siding, and then we'll stop over the uncoupling ramp again, and then we'll detach the 3 wagons at the rear from the rest of the train and just take that north navigation wagon back over. And what I'm going to do is put this in the rear siding and couple it up to the brake van, and that will then be the first 2, or rather the rear 2 wagons of the train in order. Yeah, like I said, you do get really nice slow speed running with this Hornby Class 08. It is one of the earlier TT120 models that they released, so it is mostly plastic construction. It hasn't got a lot of weight to it. It's not got a lot of die cast in it like some of the more recent models have. I'm thinking of the Class 50 and the Duchess in particular. But yeah, so this is mostly plastic construction, but despite that, is geared really nicely for slow speed running. So yeah, the lack of weight doesn't seem to matter. Anyway, there we go, we've connected up to the brake van now, and what I'll do is I'll stop over the uncoupling ramp, and then we can disconnect from the open wagon there and leave those 2 wagons there. That is going to be the rear end of our train, so now we can start thinking about the box vans. So the brown box van and the grey mineral wagon, they're still in the very front siding where I put them earlier, but the grey box van is actually in the middle siding. It's slightly hidden inside the goods shed. You might just be able to see it there behind that other red open wagon there. Yes, I've got 2 of them. This is the Pico Huntley & Palmer's wagon, I think. So what I'll do is I'll connect up to both of these now and then pull both of them out. My intention here is to just bring the grey box van into play. I need to get rid of that Huntley & Palmer's wagon in front of it, just so that I can actually use the box van. I don't actually need the Huntley & Palmer's wagon. So I have to admit, at this point I actually lost the plot slightly. I was very focused on getting everything over into that middle siding, because the middle siding is allowed to have 5 wagons into it, where obviously the rear siding and the very front siding are only allowed to have 3 wagons in them at any one time. That's obviously only if you're leaving the wagons there. Like here I've got the 4 wagons and the loco, but because I haven't left anything there, that's fine. What is a problem though is what I'm doing now, which is where I'm taking the loco and 4 wagons into the head shunt. You can't do that, so at least not if you're playing by the normal rules. So this is one of those instances where I completely forgot about this rule evidently while I was playing the game. So yeah, do as I say, not as I do. That's one of those things. It's probably a good rule for the channel overall, if I'm perfectly honest. But yeah, my reasoning behind this, the reason I was doing this and the reason I forgot about the not having too much stuff in the head shunt, that is because I was trying to get everything over to the middle siding so I could form the train up in the middle siding. Generally, if you're going to have 5 wagons to form your train, you want them to be in the, whatever siding you've designated as being the one that is long enough to have 5 wagons in. Yeah, slight error on my part. I say slight error on my part, it's quite a major error on my part, but yeah. Anyway, we've moved everything over to that middle siding now, so we're just going to take the Huntley & Palmer's wagon. We can go and get rid of this now. Obviously, if, like I said before, if you had a layout that was specifically built for the Inglenook Shunting Puzzle and the head shunt was only long enough to hold, physically long enough to hold a loco and 3 wagons, you wouldn't be able to make this mistake. So yeah, very much an error on my part there. I can't believe I've only just picked that up in the recording now while watching this, but yes, obviously don't do that if you're playing the game or if you're wanting to play the game properly. In the meantime though, I'm going to put this Huntley & Palmer's wagon back in the rear siding because we won't need that for the train. And before we move on to the next step, here's a little quick word from our sponsor. This video has very kindly been sponsored by D-Rails Model Shop, who are one of my all-time favourite model railway retailers. I've been using them constantly since I got back into the hobby. In fact, I had a loco delivered from them just a few days ago, and yeah, their service is always second to none. If you like the look of the Inglenook Shunting Puzzle that I'm demonstrating today, well, there's no reason you couldn't build one for yourself in, say, 00 gauge or N gauge. It doesn't have to be part of a bigger layout like this one is, and once you've got a baseboard, you can get pretty much everything else you need from D-Rails. So that would be all of your track and points, a nice little shunting loco, plus your wagons, and then the electrics and the scenic supplies too. You can find everything you need on their website, drails.co.uk, and yeah, have a look at what options they have available. With Christmas coming up in about a month now, this is the perfect time to be doing some modelling. It doesn't have to be a big and complicated project, but what better way to start off 2025 than by finally making a start on your model railway? Like I said, check out D-Rails for all your modelling needs, and a big thank you once again to them for sponsoring this video. So, having disconnected from the spare Huntley & Palmer's wagon now, I can start to think about forming up the rest of the train. You may also notice the rather nice Model U 3D printed figures that are installed in this loco. Really nice touch to these. Yeah, there's one in the cab there sort of leaning out, and then another one on the steps with this shunter pole as well. So perfect for when you're doing the Inglenook Shunting Puzzle like this. You've actually got some people who can, you know, be there jumping on and off, uncoupling the wagons. Of course, if you've never heard of Model U, well, firstly, where on earth have you been? But what I'll do is I'll pop a link to these figures down in the description. Well worth checking out. They've got a huge range, and of course, it's not just TT120 stuff they do. They do 00 gauge, N gauge, and pretty much any scale you can imagine. And of course, a lot of their figures are designed specifically to fit into specific locos as well. So yeah, definitely worth a look. So what I've done is I've come into the very front siding because I need this mineral wagon and also the box fan behind it. Annoyingly, I don't need them in this order. I actually need the grey box fan to be behind the mineral wagon, so I've got to swap these round slightly. But yeah, so I'm just going to uncouple from the box fan here. Sometimes the Pico couplings can be a little bit stiff in comparison to the Hornby ones, although that one was actually okay there, but I did sort of have to do a little bit of a shuffle just beforehand, just to kind of release some of the tension. That's something I found if you're trying to do this with the Pico wagons in TT120. Generally though, if you're using 00 gauge rolling stock for this, you've got the standard tension locks, or you could be using KDs or something else like that. So totally up to you what couplings you use, but that's just a little bit of info there if you're using the Pico wagons with their rolling stock. Although I think as well, I have heard some rumours that the couplings have been improved on recent models, so that might not be an issue if you've got some later versions. Anyway, what I'm doing here is I'm just coupling up to the grey box fan. So now we've got the front two wagons sort of connected to the Class 08 here, so that's the mineral wagon and the grey van. Of course, I do have to separate this little bit of a train from between the grey box van and the North's Navigation open wagon, so that's why I pulled it over the uncoupling ramp just there. And then this will allow me to put the brown box fan in between these two wagons, which is what I'm going to do now. So I'll pull these two wagons out into the head shunt, couple onto the brown box van. I'm getting confused over which colours I've got to mention, but yeah, so what I'll do is I'll pull all this out into the head shunt, couple onto the brown box van, disconnect that from the other grey wagon that's behind it, and then take these three wagons back onto the main train inside the goods shed, and then that will be the entire train formed up. Here we go, just coupling onto the brown box fan here. And yeah, when you're coupling Hornby wagon to Hornby wagon, the couplings are really, really nice indeed. And especially when you come to uncoupling as well, because the grey open wagon that is behind here, that's also a Hornby wagon as well. So I can just use the uncoupling ramp here, and then pull away nice and easily, and it all happens really smoothly and really seamlessly. When I did actually do a few Inglenook shunting demos when we exhibited the layout at the Spa Valley Railway earlier this year, and I think a lot of people were sort of quite impressed at how, you know, the uncoupling was able to happen fairly seamlessly in a relatively small scale. That is one of the nice things with TT120, of course, is that it is a smaller scale, but the models aren't quite as fiddly as N-Gauge, so you can do things like remote uncoupling with this fairly easily. Not to say that you can't do it with N-Gauge, of course. I think there's the Dapple Easy Shunt uncouplings that you can get, but yeah, it's a lot less stress and it's a lot less faff in TT120 in my opinion. And for anyone wondering, the uncoupling ramps are just little bits of clear acetate which are being pushed up by servo motors. So yeah, really simple to do. I think the servo controllers literally cost me like £4 each, and there's 3 of them here. So you know, it's not too expensive. So, having coupled these two halves of the train together, that is our entire goods train now formed up. And I'll just check here as it all goes past. So obviously we've got the Class 08 on the front of the train, that's exactly what we were expecting there. Then we have the grey mineral wagon, followed by the grey box fan, the brown box fan, then the red North Navigation open wagon, followed by the brake van on the end. That is exactly as we expected, and yeah, that is essentially how you play the Inglenook Shunting Puzzle. Obviously, I have taken a few liberties with this today. Playing with 7 wagons instead of 8 wagons does make it a little bit easier, but that is something that you could do yourself if you wanted to. You know, if you're finding it difficult with 8 wagons, you know, maybe cut it down to 5 initially and try and form up a train of 3 wagons instead, and then gradually keep, you know, adding on more wagons until you get to the full length of train. Obviously as well, I also had that moment where I completely forgot about the limit of the head shunt. Yeah, it's a good thing that I'm not in charge of a real railway, especially knowing my issue with points and signals and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, but yeah, hope you've enjoyed this video, guys. It's always fun to do these little Inglenook shunting puzzles. It's been fun to do it in TT120 rather than 00 gauge, which is what I've always done in the past. And yeah, hopefully it showed you guys what's possible in this scale. It's not all just about running trains around in a big circle. You can have a little shunting layout like this, especially in TT. You could actually have this in a fairly small space. Anyway, that is going to be it for today's video, guys. If you haven't already, please do subscribe to the channel and you'll get to see lots more model railway content like this in the future. Thank you so much for watching, everybody, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!